Hey guys.
Happy Sunday. So I have to say, it feels like a bit of a miracle that we're actually filming this outside because this has been the wettest September. I mean, it's been crazy. We're getting what, like 5 minute gap where it doesn't rain and then sun comes out and it's right back to rain again. It's been very hard to plan projects and to actually get things done. So it was a bit of a miracle when we got the painting done last week on the back side of the house. We managed to get like 3 dry-ish days.
Yeah, we squeezed that in.
Yeah, barely. And I'm hoping next week we're going to have a little window again to get some more painting done. But really right now we've just kind of been running outside whenever it's dry to grab apples off the tree and to process those because this has been a pretty epic year for apples for us. And we have just one little dinky storm-damaged apple tree in our orchard. But somehow it has really brought it this year when it comes to apples.
Small but mighty.
Yeah, so we still have a ton to pick on the tree. But we've been making all sorts of apple recipes. And I'm going to take you along for some of that this week and show you how to make my apple pie filling because it's such an easy recipe. And it's just something I like to have in the freezer for easy desserts. But we have made all manner of apple things. And many of the recipes that we're going to show you in this week's video are things that we have been making now for over 20 years, as hard as that is to believe. So all stuff that's very easy that can kind of happen in the background when you're busy, because I feel like the fall just tends to be a really busy time for a lot of people, including us. So we're going to show you that. We're also going to show you a garden project. This was another unexpected discovery that for us has sort of been a catalyst that has gotten the backyard really moving along now. So I think that there were a couple of projects that we've done recently in the back that started to make things look better. You know, we've been pulling invasives and pulling invasives, and we know we're making progress, but it's sometimes hard to see the progress when you're doing something like that. But these projects are something that got us so excited that we've kind of jumped into several backyard projects and really are starting to use the backyard a lot more now, which is wonderful. So we're going to show you that this week. And then because we're, of course, very mindful of the fact that winter is coming, the temperatures are dropping, we're noticing the house is maybe getting about a degree cooler a day. We're trying to do all those things to get ready for winter. So that's where that painting project came in. We wanted everything to be really in a good, secure fashion before all the rain got here for the year. And inside, we're thinking about warmth, you know, because we do not heat the house. We don't have an HVAC system in this house. We really don't even use radiators except for maybe occasionally. So we mostly, you'll notice in videos in the winter, we'll see us bulked up in our winter wear because it's in the mid 50s in the house. And once you put on a couple layers, it's really comfortable to be up and working during the day. So it saves us a ton of money. Electricity is very expensive here. And so with that in mind, we were doing some sewing projects to get our bed linens up to snuff for a winter. So trying to make use of some of the stuff that we brought from the US that maybe is in good condition, but not able to fit our beds here. So it was nice to get in and do a little sewing again, because I feel like there hasn't been a ton of time for that yet since we've been here and been busy with so many things. So I think that's the majority of what we have been up to this week. You ready to show them?
Let's do it.
All right. So we've been back working on the succulent wall again. Mr. Huff has been trying to tackle all of the roots that were left behind from some of the larger shrubs that we took out when we first started this project. So you can see here are some of the roots for those shrubs which were still alive. I think at this point we've gotten them all out. We shouldn't have any more of that interfering with the wall. And you can see I've been slowly but surely filling it in with succulents that I've found when we're out at Vide Greniers. And as part of this project, we've been working on cleaning further down this hillside here. So I thought I would show you what we've discovered now that we've done a little more clearing. So in this area here, it appears that the wall continues. So if you look closely now that we've thinned it a bit, you see seems to be stones carrying pretty far in this direction. Unfortunately, not all the way across, but it looks like we have a wall up to about this point right here before it transitions to just being a grassy slope. So we're going to keep clearing this out, and I think we'll just plan to extend our succulent garden this way. So this duvet cover is one that we had on our bed in the US for years. I absolutely love this fabric. It's a nice heavyweight linen blend. Love, love, love this duvet. We unfortunately had to stop using it because it ended up tearing. So unfortunately, with the way this one was made, the top is a nice heavyweight material, and they paired it with like a thin sheet cotton. So it is reinforced slightly. It's folded over once, but not nearly strong enough to hold up to all of the tug of war that he was doing over the years with this heavier weight fabric. So I brought it with me with the idea that it was a lot of good fabric still, and I was going to turn it into something else. And then here a few weeks back, it occurred to me that with the different dimensions of the duvets here, that I might actually be able to rework this and have it useful again and be able to use it on our bed, because like I said, I really, really have always loved this fabric. So we've put these two together to see how this was going to work. And I think we've actually got enough fabric to do what I was hoping. So Erin and I are going to come through and cut along this edge to shorten it up here. And then I'm going to go ahead and sew that up, and we're going to look at it again. And I think we have just enough fabric to fold this over a few times to create a new, stronger edge for the duvet. And then I can set up my sewing machine to do its automatic buttonholes. We'll sew some new buttons on, and I think we'll be able to get this back in use again. All right, so we got the duvet cover done for our bed, and we were successful in resizing it to fit a French duvet. So I originally was planning on using my machine to do a bunch of buttonholes to close the end, but I decided to use some of the cotton twill tape out of my stash instead. So I've got those running across the bottom. So I'm very happy with that. And I had a few pillow shams that match this, so I pulled those out and got those back in use as well. So I'm still very much working on tweaking the linens for our bed, slowly rebuilding our collection here in France. So I wouldn't say this is our final version of things, but I'm very happy to have gotten this duvet back in use and have another layer that we can use this winter to stay warm. And it's something that's out of my linen closet, so pleased with that as well. All right, so after removing several big shrubs and a ton of invasives, we've now exposed all of the rock in this part of the garden. So let me show you. Prior to this current project, the rock garden with all the succulents ended right here. And we've now exposed all of this rock along this stretch here. So I would say this has more than doubled the rock wall area. So I've got all the stuff out, and now I'm gonna have to start getting some succulents planted over here so we can start expanding the garden. But this is a big improvement to the way this area looks. And I am finding that we're both really motivated to get more projects done in the backyard now that we're starting to see things turn around a bit. So this is definitely as far as the rock goes here, because you can see we've cleared, here's the rock, and we've cleared past it, and now we're into an area where there are no more stones. So we've gone as far as we can to the right, but I'm now very, very excited about the idea of exposing the rest of the rock wall, which runs all through here, all the way around to the side of the Jeep. So if we can manage to clear the rest of this, I'm thinking maybe this will be one of our winter projects. Then we will have quite a pretty backdrop when we're sitting on the Jeep terrace. So big things starting to happen in the back garden, and we're really excited about it. Okay, so I've been busy processing apples and pears this week. Some from our own trees and some from boxes that we got a really good deal on at the hardware store. So let me show you what we've made. So we've got 4 pints of applesauce and 3 pints of pear sauce, and then 3 pints of apple butter. And then I'm experimenting with a new recipe, and I made 3 pints of an apple cinnamon syrup using the peels from the apples that we used for the apple butter and apple sauce. So all of this was done in the crock pot. These are recipes that I've been using now for more than 20 years. So these are definitely our tried and true family recipes. Okay, so we've done lots of apple processing this week. Our little apple tree has really outdone itself this year. So I'm back in the kitchen today to do yet more apple work. So I've already got 2 batches of applesauce going in slow cookers. And I thought while I'm in here, I would show you how to make my apple pie filling. Now, this is a great recipe because it's something that you can make ahead and keep in the freezer so that when you're in the mood to have an apple pie, it's as simple as grabbing a pie crust and throwing the filling in and getting it in the oven. So let me show you how easy this is. Okay, so I've got a bunch of apples that have been peeled and sliced, cored of course. These are kind of on the small side since our apple tree is producing mostly small apples. So your apple slices are probably going to be bigger than mine. But as long as you got the right volume, you're good. So we've got that as well as some brown sugar, some granulated sugar, a little bit of butter, and I've got some cornstarch and a bit of water, and then my apple pie spice. Now this is something you can certainly buy at the grocery store, but I do a lot of baking, so I tend to make it in big bulk batches so that I've always got it on hand. And I can link to this recipe as well because it's definitely very easy to put together. All right, so we're going to start by making the slurry that we're going to use to thicken our apple pie. So this is just a little bit of cornstarch, and some water. I'm just going to stir that up until it kind of fully combines. We'll have our milky looking slurry here. Okay, so that's good to go. We're going to set it aside because we're going to need that later on in the recipe. So what we're going to start with is I have one of my cast iron pots here. I'm going to stick our butter in here and then heat that on medium-high heat just until it's melted. All right, there we go. And it's very easy to burn butter, so just stick close to the stove and keep an eye on it. And believe it or not, this entire recipe, start to finish, is, I would say, somewhere between 8 to 10 minutes. It's a very, very fast recipe. So it's great if you've got an abundance of apples because it's something that you can do very, very quickly. All right, so we're almost there. Okay, so the butter has melted. We're going to go ahead and add in our apples. Make sure we get all of them. We put in the work to pick them and peel them and core them and chop them. We want them all. All right, then we're going to add our granulated sugar and our brown sugar, and then some of the apple pie spice. And like I said, I will link to this recipe because it's just so, so easy to make your own. And if you're processing tons of apple pie filling or apple butter, it's just nice to have it in bulk on your spice cabinet. Okay, so we've got all those ingredients. We're just going to give them a quick stir, combine everything, and then we're going to cook this until they're soft, till the apples are soft. So about 6 or 7 minutes. It really doesn't take very long at all. You can see the butter and the juice from the apples are all starting to create the filling that's going to make our apples gel, so we have a really nice apple pie filling. And I would say that's really one of the advantages of making your pie filling ahead versus throwing these ingredients directly in the pie, because you can be certain that everything has gelled well, so that you're not going to have one of those pies where you cut into it and find that it's like a big soupy mess. This just guarantees that you're going to have a great pie filling every time. And when we get to the end, I'll show you my trick for how I freeze these so that they're incredibly easy to use later. All right, so I'm going to keep stirring, and we will check back just in a few minutes once all of these have softened. Okay, so you can see our apples are now soft, and we have a wonderful syrup that has developed from the juices from the apples and all of the sugars and spices that we've added. So now we need to thicken those juices up so that they are nice and gelled in our pie. So that's where the slurry that we made earlier is going to come in. So we're just going to pour that in. We want to make sure we get every bit of it. Okay, so we're going to stir that in, and then we're going to continue stirring for 1 to 2 minutes until we see everything start to gel. Now, this is about a tablespoon of cornstarch that we used in our slurry, and usually that's plenty for this amount of apples. But if you're using especially juicy apples, or it's a year that you've had a lot of rain, you may find that you need a little more cornstarch, in which case you can just mix up a second batch of slurry and add that in to get them to gel properly. But it looks like this is already starting to gel, so it shouldn't take us too long at all. See how it's getting thick, and we can kind of pull it away now, and you see it's more of a gel than it is a liquid. This is going to be a really good batch of pie filling. And definitely keep stirring, because with all the sugar in here, we don't want it to sit there and burn the bottom of the pot. All right, so we're just going to go for maybe 1 more minute. And you'll notice this is a silicone spoon that I'm using, which is great for stuff like this because it's scraping the bottom of the pan without it being like a metal that's scratching it. So we're making sure we're getting all of that caramely, sugary goodness moving so that we're not having it burn in places. And that not only is that going to make better pie filling, but it's also going to make less work when we go to clean the pot later. Okay, so that looks good. We've got a nice batch of pie filling, and in case I haven't mentioned this before, this is exactly enough to make 1 9-inch pie. So make individual batches. And then let me show you how I handle this from here. Get the stove turned off. Now, this is going to be going into the freezer, and because I want to have the ease of just popping it straight into a prepared pie crust, what we tend to do is take the pie filling, pour it directly in a 9-inch pie plate, and then we'll freeze it like this. We'll flash freeze this in the freezer so that once it's hardened fully, we can pop it out of here and put it into a Ziploc bag or a freezer bag, and then it will be the exact size that we need for a pie. So it's going to fit right into my crust, which means if I'm in a hurry and I don't have time to thaw my pie filling, I can even cook the pie from a frozen state. So just a super simple thing. So let's get that in here. And of course, I've been focused on this being apple pie filling, but you can certainly use this for things other than just pie. So something that our family really likes to do is use it to make my apple pie muffins, which are amazing. So I can link to that recipe as well. So if you think outside of the box a little bit, you're going to find all kinds of uses for this pie filling. And it's just nice to have some in the freezer so that, if there's somebody in the family that's ill or someone's just needing a little helping hand, you've got something you can quickly pull out and put together without a bunch of prep. And this is a pretty awesome use for a bunch of free or cheap apples. All right, so let's see, our pan's not looking bad at all since we kept everything moving. So that's our pie filling. I'm gonna let that sit on the counter to cool. And once it's come down in temperature, then we'll get that into the freezer. And then the next day I'll come and put this in a freezer bag. So super simple recipe. So as usual, I will include a link to this recipe in the description below the video, as well as the apple pie spice, our apple butter, our apple sauce, and the apple pie muffins. So quite a few things to do with apples if you're like us and you're inundated at the moment.